My next guest has the tenacity of an army. She is the editor of Reserved magazine. She's an activist for the ERA, Equal Means Equal, and she is a powerhouse. Please welcome to the show, Jules Wood. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us, Jules.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so honored. Thank you. So we always start the show with the question, what do you believe?
What do I believe? I believe in equality for all. That's what I believe.
Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And equality for all, for sure. And you're such an activist. And I want to hear all about you as an activist and Reserved magazine and how you combine them.
I'm part of an organization called Equal Means Equal, and our leader of the organization is called Kamala Lopez. She's the president of Equal Means Equal. And there's Natalie White, Lizzie Jagger, that's Mick Jagger's daughter, and there's a few of us as well. Wendy Murphy, she's our lawyer. And, basically I came on board about 3 years ago with this organization, and it's really had a big impact on Reserved, the magazine itself, because, we've been promoting Equal Means Equal and the ERA to ratify for the last 4 years. And we used the Reserved magazine as a platform for this, but in a way where it's not, shoved in your face, like, get this done. And, some organizations are quite aggressive with it, but what I've done is used the magazine as a platform to educate people more.
Yeah.
Especially the website, and the events we've been doing. And, it's really important for us to have this in our constitution. We really need the ERA passed for all sexes. It's not just for women, it's for all sexes. And that's what's really important on this matter. Yes. And, we've got the 38 states, and now they're trying to block us. So we're having a problem now with the court system and other organizations actually who are saying really bad things about Equal Means Equal. So we're in a bit of a battle at the moment. So it's really scary.
So what do you do when you're in this battle? What's the next step? How do you combat it?
We have to get organizations to do statement of intent. So like organizations like Church of England, of all things, can you believe it? This is what we need. We need that kind of backing. I think maybe the UN will be a great backing as well on this situation, because, it's a global thing. It's not just for America, it's for, many countries what don't have equal rights amendment in place for women and for all sexes. So, it'll bridge the gap with pay, like wages with women, because there's an absolute huge gap, especially for minorities. And that's why I say equality is really important, especially during this time. Absolutely. And it's like, I've gone through this myself with my upbringing, because, I was brought up as a gypsy, a Roma, a traveller. So my background comes from that background, my grandparents, my great-great-grandparents, generations and generations. And, we had a lot of racism in the UK, I was brought up with that as a child. So, it's something what's disgusting, and I think that something has to change. And if we can get this amendment in place, it might help a little bit, or it might help a lot. I don't know, but it's definitely it's something we have to think about during this time.
Absolutely. In terms of your upbringing, was there a breaking point for you that you realized that you had to be an activist? At what point in your youth did you say there's something really wrong here?
Around the age 17, because I left school at 10 years old, and I went to many different schools before that, because I traveled around England. And I remember as a child that we didn't have electricity. I didn't have any water. We'd have to ask farms for water to wash and bathe in. We didn't have bathrooms like everyone else. And there was a point when I was like, what? I need to have an education. So at 16, I was working in a biscuit factory, and a friend's father was a teacher, and he said to us, he said, girls, you really need to get an education. You've got to get out of it. You can't work in a factory the rest of your lives. And I was like, you know what? He's right. It's like, I want more. And with education, it comes power, because with the education, you educate people about your background, and you get people to understand where you're from. And, I mean, it's very not, I mean, it's not really mentioned here in America. It's not really a thing here. And it's not, because there's bigger things going on in America. What's bigger than, my background, if you understand what I'm saying. But I just think it's really important to educate people about where you're from, and everyone has got experiences, and everyone's had experiences with some kind of racism. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter. It comes in all forms and sizes. And basically, it's like if you've been brought up with that all your life as a child, and then you come to another country, and then you see it on a different level, it really does shock. It's a shocking thing, because I've lived all over the world. I've lived in Asia, Japan.
Yes.
And I've seen a form of racism in Japan as well. In the 90s, I was living there in the 90s, in my 20s. And because there wasn't many Westerners in Japan then, so we were very unique, but there was a lot of prejudice against us being there as well. So, and that had nothing to do with with the color of your skin or anything. It was just, that was a fact, because you weren't Japanese. And the same with England, because if I was classified as a gypsy, so we had a lot of problems with the police all the time as a kid, asking to be moved along, because we lived in caravans and we all were in a pack, like a group. So everyone would stay in a group, like families. So there were cousins and aunties and things like that, because a lot of them did field work. So my family, they were field workers. They worked in fields, they picked fruit. It was all seasonal. And then my father then was a trainee. He trained himself to be a mechanic. So then he started doing mechanic. I mean, it was like working class family, basically, but it was even lower than a working class because of our background. And, we lived in a caravan. So people saw us as a threat. And, I remember, 11 years old, pulling up at a restaurant, example, and it says, no dogs allowed, no gypsies. So we weren't allowed to go into that restaurant. And something just happened recently with Tyson Fury, the boxer. He's like the king of the gypsies. That's his nickname. He just recently tried to go to a restaurant in England, in the UK. This is just recent. And he was refused because he was a gypsy.
Unbelievable.
And it was on Good Morning Britain, but he didn't want to speak about it because he didn't feel comfortable, because he didn't want to put the people who work in the restaurant, he didn't want them to get fired. So he was being very considerate, because it wasn't them, it's from the management or from the owners. So he didn't want to speak about it on TV, and they were trying to make him talk about it. But it's still, it's still going on now. And now, and then this now here in America, it's just absolutely disgusting.
It is disgusting. What did you learn about your human experience? Because when you say education, it's really educating people on your story, right? It's everyone's story, and yours is so powerful. What did you learn about yourself?
Acceptance. To accept who I was and to accept where I came from. And that was really hard, especially at college, because I still got discriminated at college, and they tried to make me stay on an extra year because I missed so much education, but my reading and writing and skills weren't up to the same level as the other students. And I refused to do it. I said, no, I'm going to graduate the same as those other students who was in my class, and I'm going to apply to university. I'm not going to be pulled back because of something, what you feel that I don't have the skills, or you feel that I'm not competent to go to university. So I just refused, and I applied to universities, and I got into Westminster University. So I left at the same time. But, I don't take no. And I think that's what people have to start thinking about. when someone's negative to you or someone tries to pull you down, and you know, I always say yes to everything as well, because I think it's really important. You have to, you can build yourself up, and you can do things what you would never think that you could do. But it's just having that confidence, and it's like it took me a long time to get that confidence. I'm going to be honest with you, because I was in tears all the time. It was like everyone was always trying to pull me down, and because of my background, or because who I was, or because I lived in a caravan, and it was like, it's wrong, because it's like, you know, you can't do that to individuals, because everyone is intellectual in their own way.
Yes.
And I think that, you know, you can't treat people like that. And I think, you know, I think things are going to change really quite soon.
Absolutely. I believe they are as well. And what is your story is, you're such an inspiration, and what you said just hit me right in the heart when you said, you know, acceptance and building your confidence. And that's something that, you know, I struggled with as well when I was younger. You know, you because you're different,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and you feel odd, or odd man out, odd woman out, or not like everyone else, that's actually a strength.
Yeah,
Actually,
exactly.
that's actually something that should be celebrated.
Mm-hmm.
Because being like everyone else, firstly, no one is like anyone else, because
No.
we're all individuals, right? So like that's the thing. But growing up and feeling like you're different is something that needs to be celebrated. And how do we do that? How do we instill that in the younger generation?
Again, education, the way they've been brought up. It's like it's their parents, you know, and being a little bit more worldly as well. I think it's important. I think if you know, if a child has got an opportunity to go away for a term to a different country, give your child that opportunity. Let them see how other people live in different countries, you know. I think that's really important. I think worldly education is a good one, as well as the education and formal education, because like now, formal education is more important than ever with this next generation. You know, with my generation, it was getting there, and my family's generation, of course, it was worldly only. There wasn't any education for them. My parents couldn't read and write. They didn't know how to read and write. My grandmother didn't know how to read and write. They never went to school. They didn't know the concept of school. It was like a swear word. Like when I said I wanted to go to college, my grandmother, because I lived with my granny for a few years, because my parents actually moved into a house when I was about 11 years old, and I didn't want to move into the house because I didn't want change. I was so terrified of change. So I stayed with her, but that meant staying with her meant no education. So that's when I worked in factories. From a very young age, I started working at the age of 13. So, I mean, and that's not, you know, you look at me and go, what? That's something we'd hear about in the 50s or something, or well, the 40s, you know, you wouldn't think about that in like the 80s.
Right.
So, so I made that choice, and it was, you know, I don't know, it was a weird thing to have to choose as a child, to have that choice, you know.
Sure.
As I feel like I wish my parents would have said, you know, no, you can't stay with your gran in the caravan, because then I would have been able to go to school. But my granny was so against school and education. She said if I go to secondary school, she was worried about I would get attacked or raped. That was her words. That's how afraid gypsies were of school or going and socializing outside your circle.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was like, and then so basically I had to move out from my grandmother when I wanted to go to college, because she was like, no, I don't want you going to college.
Right.
Yeah.
There was that push pull of wanting to be out in the world and yet being afraid to, because of how you grew up.
Yeah.
You feel that your upbringing helped you, because you're so good with people and you're so good with connection.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel that, sort of inspired you as a child?
You know what? I was used to going to strangers' doors as a kid because my grandmother was a fortune teller. She sold charms for a living, that her and my great auntie. So they used to drag me with them and knock on doors. So I had that connection. I was always meeting strangers with them, you know, and they did bring us into the house and make us a cup of tea. And it's like, and I was always interacting with people from a very young age. I mean, you know, in a safe environment because I'm with my grandmother and it's like with my aunties, great aunties. And so I think that helped me, you know, not be too shy.
Yeah, you're not shy. You could talk to anyone.
Yeah. And I think that helped me with the connections and with, you know, with basically traveling the world and not being frightened by anyone, you know, like just, you know, like I said, I can talk to anyone, and you're right, I can talk to anyone. I can, and I have a knack for doing the connection thing because I think, you know, people feel at ease speaking to me, and I feel like I make people feel at ease, and especially with celebrities, and it's just something, I don't know, I think it's just the way I've been brought up and the way I've interacted with people all my life as a kid, comes from that, you know.
Amazing. That's a superpower.
Yeah, well, you know, my granny was a fortune teller, but there was some powers there.
For sure.
Yeah.
You feel like you have a little bit of a.
Yeah, I feel it sometimes.
Yeah.
I feel like I have, you know, a little bit of it. I'm a good judge of character.
Right.
I can feel someone out, you know, but maybe that's because of my background as well, because, you know, there's a trust thing maybe as well. But you know, like I said, it's you have to take people at face value at first, and then, you know, because you can never judge anyone by face value. So it's like you take them by face value, and then you get to know people. You know, it's like you can't be, you know, put your arms up and say no. Like I said, that's why I always say yes to a lot of things, because I think you've got to be open to everyone and everything around you. And I think that's what helps having the magazine as a platform, because I think that helps a lot of other people as well and have a voice.
Yeah, for sure. And you put it out there, and you do it so beautifully and succinctly.
Yeah, but it took me a long time to actually be able to talk about my background, because I wasn't ashamed. I'm not ashamed of it or anything, but it was a strange thing for people to bring up, because I've got a friend who actually brings it up all the time. Every time he introduces me, he says, oh, and she's from a gypsy background, you know, in social situations where I've never met these people before. And sometimes it's like, why am I being introduced in that way? Sometimes I think in my mind, but it's like, okay, now I've got to explain and break it down what actually your gypsy is, because people have different views of gypsies, or they have bad feelings towards them, or they think that they're new age travelers, or they think they're squatters. It's like that, you know, I have to break it down, and sometimes it's tiring.
Well, yeah, because it's also like this kind of badge this person is putting is a label. It's like an instant label on you, and that's very off-putting. It can be.
Yeah, it is.
So instead of it coming up naturally in a conversation.
Yeah. I know. It's yeah. Sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, but it's not all the time. It's just some people, you know, they do that to me, and I'm like, oh God, now I've got to explain, because it's something you know, in America, like I said, it's not really heard of. I mean, you know, we as gypsies, went through the Holocaust as well. You know, like Nazis, they burnt gas gypsies as well, and no one really speaks about that history, you know. But there is actually a museum in Berlin for gypsies,
right?
The gypsy community. What a lot of people lost their families as well. So, you know, but it's like, it's just one of those things. It's just, like I said, it's like you have to educate people about things like this, you know. I did do an exhibition in New York of my family, because, you know, I specialized in photography at university. Right. But from the age of 17 to the age of 35, I documented my family.
Amazing.
So then I did a huge exhibition at the Witzenhausen Gallery, and it's an Amsterdam gallery, and then they had you know, a gallery as well in New York. So, you know, I did an whole exhibition about it and of my family, and it was great. And I've been in, you know, numerous magazines, and talked about it. And some of my experiences as a child, they're not great, to be honest, but some of them. But it's good to get it out and to discuss about it, because I think that again makes you stronger.
Yeah. Well, it feels very healing for you.
Yes.
You're an artist, and it sounds like what you did was you healed yourself through your art.
Yeah, through my right, and
by doing this exhibition, it sounds like, and talking about it, right?
Yeah, and you know, a lot of like my parents are dead now, and my grandmother's passed away, and it was good to have those memories, especially as when I was young, and you know, a lot of it's 35 mil, so it's negatives, and it's black and white, you know, and a lot of the work what I have still is what I developed, I printed myself, you know, at university. So it's a lot of special memories, and you know, I think one day I'll make a book of it. You know,
yeah. I was just about to say, does it live anywhere online? But
no, it doesn't. No, but I have all the work, I have all the pictures, and I think it'll be a really beautiful book one day to as a remembrance to my family. You know, and because they've made me who I am. My mother and father. It's like, you know, I owe them a lot. You know, at the end of the day, they brought me into this world as well, and I'm you know, I don't think I wouldn't change anything. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm proud, and I'm glad from where I'm from.
Yes,
and I'm glad that I've had that experience of life.
Absolutely, absolutely. It is who you are, and that's beautiful. And you have a story to tell, and that's your strength, and that's one of your superpowers. You have many.
Oh, thank you.
So what do you think in terms of what's next? I mean, you know, here we are at this time in unprecedented time in history. What are you feeling in terms of what's next for us? I mean, we're going through so much with the pandemic and civil unrest and civil rights.
Mm-hmm.
What do you feel?
You know what? I feel like it's going to be a big shift. I feel like in the next couple of years, a lot of things are going to change in America. I'm hoping that some of the constitution will change as well, because I think certain things need to be rewritten in history, because I feel like, and I'm sure a lot of people have got the same feeling. I think that, you know, some things are really old, and that's the problem. But that's what I think there's going to be a big change. I think there's a new generation what's stepping up. I mean, Mariah Parker, she's a politician. She's 28 years old. Amazing. In Athens, Georgia. Yeah. So there's all these young people coming out now, and I think the government and I just feel like there's going to be a big shift for sure. I think it's time.
It certainly is time.
Yeah, people have had enough, and I think and you know, and because of the pandemic, I think magazines and the way we do things now is going to change as well. I think already creatively everything is changing.
What do you think about the fashion business in terms of this shift?
Well, you know what? I think a lot of things are going to be done online. I don't think we're going to have that kind of contact anymore for a long time. Especially with fashion shows, they're all going virtual. There's one coming on tomorrow on her Instagram. She's actually doing it on her Instagram. It's Sophia Noobs. She's an Italian designer, amazing woman. I had a chat with her on Reserved, and she was diagnosed with breast cancer a year ago, and she's been going through chemo and anyway, amazing woman. I said she was superwoman actually, because she actually completed her collection during this time while going through hardcore chemo.
Wow.
Yeah, and she's actually launching it virtually on Instagram tomorrow. So people, like, you know, everyone is doing things in their own way now, and I think that's the most. I think that's because of the pandemic as well, because of the coronavirus. Everyone's had to realize, like, everyone's had to think about how to do things differently than what you used to be able to do, and everyone's been a bit more creative. It's like, you know, I would have never been in front of a camera before. or doing live chats on Instagram, because I'm always behind the camera. I'm never in front. So I was like, it took me a long time. I don't know how you feel about it, but it's a bizarre thing, especially when you're not used to it. So that came out of that for me. It's like, oh my God, I've turned into this, like, you know, I don't know, like
you're like the face of reserved, you know. You are now, you really are. That's really,
yeah. So, you know, yeah, basically. And it was quite scary at the beginning. And I was, you know, and because of when I went to university, I found out I was severely dyslexic. So that was a problem with the reading and writing, because my sister had the same schooling as me, and her spelling, her writing, her reading is perfect, like more than perfect. She could actually be a lawyer. She'd have gone straight through. She's got 3 kids, and she's happily married, and, you know, she's
in England?
Yeah, she's in England. But she's super, super smart, you know. And then it was like me who goes to university and finds out I'm severely dyslexic. And I'm like, oh my God, what else? So I have problems pronouncing names. I have problems reading. I'm going to be honest with you, I really do. If I'm not familiar with a word or a sound, I have an absolute nightmare with it. And I've lost lots of opportunities because of this in my life. You know, growing up, like photojournalist, I tried to change to a photojournalist course, but it was like, no. So for me to do those live chats is sometimes I have like a bit of a nervous breakdown before, because it's like, I cannot pronounce that person's name. So I'm like, I'll call them. So I figure ways out around it, you know. Sometimes I don't pronounce it right, but basically I'll call them and say, okay, how do you pronounce your name? You know, and then I'm like, I'll watch a YouTube of that person.
Right.
In another interview. So I figure ways around it, you know. I'm always like, and that's how it's been all my life, how to figure out a problem. You know, especially with the reading and writing. It's always been there, and it's always been a problem.
Interesting. But you just said, you know, how to, you know, you're a problem solver, and that's why you do what you do. I mean, having a magazine, I'm sure, is just riddled with problems and stuff that happens last minute that you have to figure out. You know, it's always on shoots, and I mean, it's always like a high tension situation, right? So, you know, you chose a line of work that you excel in, but also can be very pressurized.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, basically during this quarantine, I decided to do 19 covers because Corona-19, but suddenly the covers grew into 22 covers now.
Wow.
So, you know, I put that pressure on myself now, and it's like, oh my God, you know, and it's coming in, everything's coming in, but it's just like, oh my God, 22 covers, this is a monster. I mean, it's really quite unique in its own way, because the people, like, it's so diverse, like who's on the covers, it's just completely diverse, and it's absolutely gonna be stunning and beautiful. And there's a story behind every cover, and that's, you know, and during this quarantine time, that's what's made this come to light, these 22 covers, because I would have never even thought about this then. And it's going out digital first, so what makes it even more possible, you know. So I'm really
22 is a spiritual number, so that's a good number. Yeah,
really
synchronicity. It's good.
Oh, okay, good, because I was like, where did 22 come from? Suppose it was 19 and 22.
No, it's good. It's good. Francesca and I talk about it all the time. No, it's very synchronistic.
Yeah.
It's good.
All right. Oh, that makes me happy.
Sure. And I'm curious, creatively also, you know, sort of how do you see the business or creative businesses evolving at this time also? Is there anything that you see differently?
Yeah, I mean, virtual shoots has been really crazy. Like Ellen Bonham Worth did a virtual shoot with Katerina Barr, the actress, in Glasgow. She shot it in Paris through, I think it was Facebook Live, and then she sent me the pictures. I mean, wow, like unbelievable. So that's changed. That's actually changed the way of shooting, for sure. So that's something I've actually seen really noticeable at this present stage. of what's going on. And she's not the only photographer. Albert did the same with Josephine Bon. She's a singer, French singer, amazing. She was on one of our live chats. But so he did a virtual shoot as well. And then I'm seeing more like more animation, you know, shoots like moving covers on Instagram. And I think that's really clever as well. And because of, again, that everyone's thinking like, how can we make this work and how can we be creative during this time? Because we can't be on set, we can't see people. It's like me sending clothes to England, getting clothes gifted to her, so that she doesn't have to worry about sending them back because they're in lockdown. You know, it's like, you can't just, like in England, in Glasgow, it's pretty serious. In Wales, they're not letting anyone in Wales outside of Wales.
Right.
You're not allowed. They're closed. And this is in England. This is Great Britain, but the border is closed. They're just turning them all back because they don't want them on the beaches, you know, and that. So, so it is really strict. And I just love the way that everyone has been pulling together and coming up with more creative ideas to deal with this now. And I think this is a wonderful way as well of you know, it's a new thing, and I think it's probably going to continue for sure.
I think so too. I don't think we're not even close to being out of the woods.
No, I saw something in the New York Times yesterday saying that the EU is not going to let America.
Yeah.
And that's like
exactly. It's shocking
because they haven't been following the guidelines.
Exactly. I know.
And today, was it yesterday in Los Angeles? It spiked up to 7,000 more cases.
Really?
Yeah. Corona.
That's really, well, we are deemed a country that hasn't dealt with this virus properly.
Yeah. No.
And, you know, until we figure out a better way, we're not going to be allowed to travel, which is pretty surprising that other countries do not want American dollars because they certainly need it.
Yeah, I know.
But yeah, we are dangerous to other countries. I mean, it's crazy. The whole thing is crazy.
I mean, it's like, you know, America's acting like a third world country at the moment.
Yeah.
You know, in a way, if you think about it. So it is a frightening time, and I think, you know, I travel a lot for work, so for me it's frustrating.
Yes.
Because it's like I can't travel, and I can't even come to New York because then I have to be quarantined, and then it's like, you know, then I have to get a hotel, and it's like I can't stay where I usually stay. It's like so it's like everything's really difficult, and nothing's open. You know, my agency is not open, so
right.
You know, that's why this is a time to get reserved and start getting this ERA situation sorted out and getting it passed.
Absolutely.
And work on all of these things, and, you know, to help with what's going on now as well.
Absolutely. Well, you're doing it. You're making it happen, and we're grateful for it. Thank you, Jules. You're a powerhouse.
Thank you for having me on.
So much for being on.